Hello, everyone, and welcome to our FoxNews.com digital debate special, the Fox News Google Republican debate. I'm Melissa Francis, along with Kennedy, Charles Payne, Meghan McCain, and Tom Shalhoub. While sparks were flying during the early GOP debate, the final one before the Iowa caucus just 4 days away, Carly Fiorina, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, and Jim Gilmore squared off in Des Moines, each making their case to the GOP president to be the GOP presidential nominee. So who came out on top? Here's a glimpse at some of the fireworks from tonight's face-off.
What Iowans deserve is to hear from every candidate on an equal footing. Had they applied the same rules 4 years ago, I would have been in the undercard debate. The guy who won the Iowa caucuses would have been in the undercard debate.
And I will say this to you, as the only veteran in this race, when I become president of the United States, the veterans are going to be treated with respect and competently and success in the Veterans Administration in this country.
Newsflash, President Obama. Newsflash, Mrs. Clinton. Climate change is not our most pressing national security threat. Actually, it is ISIS, followed closely by Iran.
I resent it when people say, oh, people are poor because they want to be. No, they're not. Nobody wants to be poor. And that's a stupid, foolish thing, mean thing to say. People are poor because they don't know how to get out of the hole.
Gun control is not going to be an issue. If gun control comes to the president's desk when I'm president, I'll veto it as fast as it takes Hillary Clinton to eliminate her emails.
Woo! All right, let's bring it out to the panel. They were furious, it seemed. I mean, do they know ABC's not even having an undercard debate? These people were furious to be in the undercard.
Yeah,
what was that?
They were really upset. It's their last gasp, and I think they all treated it with the wrong tone. I think everyone came out kind of angry, and that comes off as desperate. We're 3 days before votes are cast in the Iowa caucuses, and this is the time to be hopeful. This is the time to be confident, and there's a fine line between being confident and being petulant. And I think Rick Santorum totally crossed that line in the beginning. He's had this tone in some of the other debates, but at this point I just want to say, Rick, you don't have a shot this year. Knock it off. It's not 2012. If you've got a vision, lay it out competently and with optimism. He didn't do that.
You know what? Let's listen to the soundbite that you're talking about, because people have to hear it to believe it. Let's play it.
Is Monday night your last stand?
You know, listening to what your network was talking about prior to this race, this debate, reminded me of the coverage that many on this floor are getting. This debate was called the undercard debate. The undercard debate. It wasn't advertised significantly. In fact, the entire hour lead up to this, there was no conversation about any of the four people on this debate stage. And that is the chronic situation.
Meghan McCain.
Can I say so? I mean,
yes, I was sitting with you when this was playing live, and you were furious. You were like throwing spitballs at the television. What is that?
Running for president and being on the undercard debate stage is a privilege. You are on a platform in front of the entire American public to send out your message, and these are all candidates that are standing there, with the exception of Carly Fiorina, acting like petulant children. On top of everything else, you want me to take you seriously, that you think you're going to become president? Why are you going and hanging out with Donald Trump in an hour, okay? I'm not taking anything you're saying seriously. And they sounded so angry and so upset. And to sort of go after Fox News right now seems particularly tone deaf and angry. And there's a reason why everyone standing on that stage, except for Carly Fiorina, should be standing on that stage, and they're going to lose.
Yeah. What did you think of it,
You
Charles?
know, he's talking about the undercard. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I think Rick's in. I look like roid rage to me. I mean, it's like, golly, my man, what the heck? It's really, we could have called it the kids' table, but no one did.
No.
But he certainly acted like it was. And this whole thing, I understand, taking on the media has been a great narrative for these candidates.
Yep.
Narrowing it down in the last few days to Fox has been a pretty good thing. But again, how are you going to be a great president? And I got to tell you something. They hit all the hot buttons, but they still didn't explain anything to me. For instance, Rick Santorum, they're going to bring manufacturing back. We're going to be #1 in manufacturing.
Right.
You know, Foxconn, which is the largest manufacturer in China, the average person there makes $4,000 a year. So you got to explain to me, when we bring those jobs back, how we're going to take those from $4,000 a year jobs to $40,000 a year jobs. Stop lying to the American public to win votes and give us some real economic policies if you want to be adult about it and forget about all the other shenanigans.
All right. Tom Shalhoub.
But who's going to have the guts to say that? Like, who was the last politician to say they're not coming back? Didn't someone once say that?
No,
the jobs
not that they're
aren't
not
coming back.
Not that they're not coming back,
nailed.
Tom. But how do you bring them back?
It's specifically manufacturing jobs.
Right. So today, for instance, factory orders came in, down dramatically. I mean, it was huge, the amount that is down. Why? Because of policies, regulations, tax policies. There's a way that you can articulate this to the American public, but I think, I don't know, I just feel like it was pandering and hot buttons, and I don't know that they got anywhere so that they can elevate themselves from this so-called undercard table.
No, and that sort of economic isolationism, it's incredibly naive. My husband has a factory. My husband's in manufacturing, and, you know, I'll tell you, it's an uphill battle. And, you know, they do it because they don't have the kind, they're too small to have the kind of quality control necessary that they would have in a factory in China. Sure, they could make their snowboards cheaper there, but they would also snap in half, and they have the kind of oversight. But that's a choice. And when you're taking choices away from Americans and pigeonholing them and telling them exactly where and how, that's as bad as Bernie Sanders saying that we're going to have single-payer health care. The sort of isolationism, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what Megan was saying, what do you think? What about Huckabee? I didn't think he was particularly angry. I thought he played it pretty well because he used the famous Huckabee humor, and he seemed to be a little more laid back. I felt like it was interesting that you said Carly, aside from Carly, because she used the famous Carly anger,
right.
but I thought she used it to her advantage. You know, when she said newsflash, and then she got an applause. You know, it was she said that
ISIS is our #1 threat.
Yes.
Yeah, not
and
climate
so
change.
I think, I don't know about everyone else, but I think Carly knows how to use the anger and make it seem like passion. But for some reason, Santorum can't do that.
Okay,
no, she's also.
I mean, yes, I agree with you. The only thing is, though, that I thought Huckabee made a great point on the economics, and I think that's where you were starting with. I mean, when he talked about, I know what it's like to grow up poor. You know, my mother grew up in a house that didn't have a floor, whatever. We've heard that story before, but he made the point that we punish people for getting off of government programs and not moving up. And he at least connected that to a lot of the things that Bernie Sanders says. And when Martha McCallum asked that question, you know, if you have Bernie Sanders out there and he's talking to the woman who only makes $10,000 a year and she can't afford to, we've got that summit. Let's listen to that answer rather than me recreating it. Let's listen
Although
to
it is great.
Yeah, you're a good actress.
Do you know what our poverty programs do to people? They keep them in poverty. They keep them in poverty because we have these arbitrary thresholds that mean that if you go to work, you lose all the benefits for your kids. I resent it when people say, oh, people are poor because they want to be. No, they're not. Nobody wants to be poor. And that's a stupid, foolish thing, mean thing to say. People are poor because they don't know how to get out of the hole. And government shouldn't push them back in the hole, which is what our policies do when they punish people who want to go to work and don't let them out.
So this is a very important point for whoever is going to be the Republican nominee. You have to be able to articulate why you are not heartless and why you are not taking food out of children's mouths and why you are trying to recreate the economy in a way that's going to lift people out of poverty without giving them handouts. Charles, did he hit that right?
I think he came very close, although the beginning of that sounded like a shot at Republicans. In other words, the narrative against Republicans is always that, you know, they always pick on the poor and that they're saying that poor people want to be poor. So I don't know if that was sort of a cautionary tale against his fellow Republicans, a plea for the general election, but he's absolutely right. Obviously, you take a pay cut, starting with Hawaii, which is all in the benefits can add up to over $60,000 a year. I think the key is for someone to be able to articulate to people, you might actually take a pay cut, net, but now you're on the ladder to ultimate success and to control your own destiny, which is important.
And it's interesting that this economic populism has taken such hold in the Republican Party. I think it's just as dangerous here as it is in the hands of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Because I think what you're doing is, instead of someone like Calvin Coolidge sitting back, making the government smaller and allowing the free market to work, no Republican is making a good sell for that right now, especially not Santorum and Huckabee. What you're saying is, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to have some other government job creation or government program that's going to cost cost money, and do the same thing that progressives are doing.
Yeah. Megan, what do you think about that?
I say this every single time I'm on the show with you guys. You're all economic experts. They need to break this down to be more accessible to the average American. My friends are watching this. They're not economic experts. I had texts saying, what are they saying? I don't understand. You want to communicate against Hillary? She's real good at making these things really easy, especially Bernie Sanders saying, I'm going to fix all your problems. I'm going to make it easy.
No Republican is doing that. You're absolutely right. And they're also not defending capitalism, which is a very straightforward argument.
100%. And I just think when we're sitting here and we're getting so wonky, I think of the people in my life who are having such a hard time with these candidates, and they've got to start communicating with young people in a way that Bernie Sanders is.
Can you do that, Tom Shalhoub? Tell us how to communicate with young people on economics.
I can't do it. No, I would have the same problem as Rick Santorum, because when I get angry, I seem like I'm whining, and I don't know, maybe it's the Boy Scout thing. I don't know what it is, like the angry Boy Scout.
Well, you know what, though? Good, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But you made a good point that attacking Republicans doesn't do any good. It's kind of a straw man argument. Were any of the other candidates on that stage saying that poor people are poor because they want to be? No. So he's kind of attacking that phantom Republican. It doesn't do any good. But the good thing he said was poverty programs keep people poor. That's what Republicans have to do. Show that it's mean to keep people in poverty and, through government assistance.
And this scares progressives whenever you try to pierce that particular argument. I know, for instance, how many times I've been on Jon Stewart, me and Barney talking about these same programs, and, of course, they always twist it. They're picking on people because they got air conditioning and refrigerators, So they're experts at this. And you know what? It's so much easier to articulate Bernie Sanders' point. I'm going to give you free stuff. That's really simple, okay?
But the problem is you're going up against a media that wants to manipulate the words coming out of
there's no doubt about
mouths.
it.
And you and Stewart wouldn't hold your teacups like that while you're talking about it.
Okay, but here's what you could say. I mean, here's a straightforward message. Let's cut spending, let's cut taxes, and allow people to get rich. Let's have more rich people in this country. Let's create an environment where the economy blossoms and blooms, and you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor instead of having a minimum wage of $15 where everyone lives an ordinary life.
Yes, although I would say that this whole message is hard to get across. One that really did hit home, though, was when Carly Fiorina went to town on Hillary Clinton. Let's listen to that.
It wasn't a personal attack. I was pointing out the fact that Hillary Clinton will do anything to gain and hang on to power. Anything. Listen, if my husband did what Bill Clinton did, I would have left him long ago. So, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Hillary Clinton has been climbing the ladder to try and get power, and here now she is trying for the White House. She's probably more qualified for the big house. Honestly, she's escaped prosecution more times than El Chapo. Perhaps Sean Penn should interview her. The woman should be prosecuted. It's called the Clinton way. Both Bill and Hillary practice it the Clinton way. Say whatever you have to say, do whatever you have to say, lie as long as you can get away with it. Hillary Clinton cannot be the president of these United States.
Woo! She got it all in on that one. I mean, she got in every hit that's out there. As a comedian, did you appreciate the way she punched up those lines?
Oh, she's good.
Yeah.
She's learning from Dennis Miller, I think. It reminded me a lot of Dennis Miller's segment.
It had that cadence.
Here's the deal. That's what she said. Here's the deal. The big house. El Chapo.
Ow.
She's good with the punchlines.
Yeah.
And that's when you can get angry if you're throwing out punchlines and then she follows it up with something serious. Hillary Clinton cannot be president of these United States. Fantastic.
Bum, bum, bum.
I got the feeling, Megan, that she practiced that in the mirror for a long time. And I mean, good job. Like, I definitely, if I had that material, I would have gone through it and practiced it. It was well delivered, yes?
I think that clip is the most memorable of the undercard debate. For me, as a woman,
how dare you?
Trigger warning.
I love the entire thing. For me, I'm being hit with Lena Dunham and Katy Perry all day long and being told that Hillary Clinton is this great feminist icon and I need to support her simply because I have ovaries. And to have Carly Fiorina standing there saying, if my husband did this to me, I'd be out. That's feminism according to me. That is post-feminism. And for me, finally someone is saying this. Finally someone is bringing this up in the media. And I really love seeing a conservative woman on stage hitting Hillary Clinton in the jugular.
Although I have to say, okay, so of that whole thing, I think absolutely she belongs in jail. She should be indicted. you know, all of the things. I don't love that part about if my husband that did this to me, I would leave him, because I think everyone's marriage is their own business. I think the point that she was trying to make that gets lost in that is that she's saying Hillary will do anything for power.
Yeah.
And that, you know, the reason why they're together is because she was just hanging on so she could be president.
That's the point that Lena Dunham was making at the HBO chief's private party.
Yep.
That's when she was telling everyone, I have a problem with Hillary Clinton and the way she treated the women who accused her husband of sexual assault. And she was complicit in trying to ruin their lives. It's one thing to have privately an agreement that you are going to stick together. I agree with you there. It's another thing to actively and maliciously malign people and try to make them pay for coming forward when you are the person who says that you are the champion for all victims of sexual abuse, women and children, because that makes Hillary a hypocrite. Young feminists like Lena Dunham, they know that in their bones, but she's not bold enough, A, to say that, or B, to also come out with a list of words that you can't say about Carly Fiorina, only about Hillary Clinton.
I just love, I love that all day long, because I think it's Hillary's relationship to the victims of the sexual assaults by Bill Clinton. And again, as Hillary Clinton stands there and is telling literally me, my generation, that I'm the great feminist icon you've been waiting for, hearing Carly Fiorina come out and again say exactly what I've been wanting her to say all day long, I think it's completely fair game, and I think Hillary Clinton should be addressing it more. I love it. I love it all day long. I think it's fair game. She's running for president. I think the Clintons' marriage is fair game.
I think the El Chapo quote was very funny, that she's escaped prison more times than he has, which is true. I mean, it is going to be, I hate to even bring it back, but it's going to be insane to me if there isn't an indictment. If you look at everything they've done along the way. And her larger point was that this is a family who will do anything for power.
Well, it's always worked for him.
Yeah.
It's always worked, you know, through Arkansas. It's always worked for them. They've always gotten away with it. But remember, they got away with it with the Bill Clinton charm. The Hillary Clinton charm ain't working as well. Didn't work with Valerie Jarrett so far. So I can tell you right now, to your point, that news is starting to tighten up really close. It's a race against the clock more than anything else. You know, it's so funny because they just had a guy in, East Chicago, Indiana, who was sworn in, a councilman. He was reelected, but he also is indicted for murder, so he's sworn in prison. So, trivia, maybe it can happen. Yeah,
right. I got to look up that story.
Yeah, it just happened this week. So it's absolutely, and Kennedy's going to have him on their show when he gets bail. But
can't wait.
Yeah. Do you guys think that, you know, speaking of the Bill Clinton charm, do you think he could get away with the Bill Clinton charm today? And I'm talking about the original Bill Clinton when he was running for president.
In 1991, 92?
Yes.
No.
Because when they called it the bimbo eruptions, that was, I think, Hillary's word, right? Or at least the Clinton camp's words. Then they went on and they held hands and they went on a national news broadcast. This is pre the power of cable news. Forget about the internet.
Yeah.
I don't think he could have survived the initial presidential.
Although he's getting some big crowds, though, right now he's getting big crowds. He's still drawing.
He's getting crowds.
He's drawing more enthusiasm than Hillary is, though.
Well, he is, because that's actually not necessarily true. His rollout was actually a lot more underwhelming than they expected.
He's not doing well with the press. He looks a lot slower than he did even 4 years ago.
He's in bad shape.
But you know, to Tom's question, no, I don't think so. And I think it's funny because it's such a vastly different time. And you also have to realize that Bill Clinton ushered in a paradigm shift. I mean, think how different the Reagan-Bush years were from the Obama years. And you're not going to have the same kind of shift. But he turned a generation on its head in order to get elected. He doesn't have that power now. And the sort of, you know, the retro 90s thing, which certainly I owe my career to, I don't think it works for him in the same way in this era.
Also, in the era of Bill Cosby, it means an entirely different thing to have this kind of relationship with women and these kind of accusations. And again, what Lena Dunham is trying to do to try and get this generation interested in Hillary, it means an entirely different thing for me. The idea of Bill Clinton being in the White House, again, with being encumbered by nothing, makes me violently uncomfortable. Violently uncomfortable. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to be the first gentleman running around the White House with a bunch of interns again. That should make all women uncomfortable.
But in public, though, Lena Dunham is still a major Hillary supporter right now.
She is a major Hillary supporter, but we have to admit she was hit by the leak that she questions Hillary Clinton. And
but she will be out there pounding the pavement for Hillary.
I'm so sorry. What girl in Iowa is like sitting there like, you know what? I wasn't going to vote for Hillary, but girls like this, the show on HBO.
And she came off so whiny in that Variety interview. I'm sorry, but when she talked about Hillary is so gendered, it's rabidly sexist. Every single portrayal is rabidly sexist. It's like, Lena, You portrayed her. Were you rabidly sexist?
Yeah.
Then that's one case where she wasn't portrayed rabidly sexist. So therefore, you've negated your own
Lena
statement.
Dunham also, it comes as a great shock to her that there's a giant generation of women, a giant population that are ardently pro-life and maybe don't want to listen to someone whose book tour is sponsored by Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, they also made a great point at the top of the debate that there's a big gap in this country, as we all know, between the entertainment industry, New York and the media, and Washington, and the whole rest of the country. And that a lot of people in media ignore that, and they're having different conversations in Iowa than they are elsewhere. In Iowa, I bet a lot of people don't know who Lena Dunham even is. Now, let's move on to one of the other things, though, that Carly Fiorina said that was, I don't know if it was quite as on target. How about her attack on Fox? Let's listen to that.
Martha, can I just say, we've been talking tonight about a lot of issues, and we've also been talking about the fact that the game is rigged, and frankly, the media has a lot to do with that. It is outrageous, frankly, that Fox News and you would question the pro-life credentials of Rick Santorum. That is outrageous.
Of course, that's not exactly what Martha did. Martha asked if he was at the Walk for Life. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
So it's not. Yeah, I don't think she was quite doing that. It's kind of like it's cool to attack the media, and it's really cool if I'm a Republican to attack Fox, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I don't think it scores Carly Fiorina any points. And I think these candidates come off as, like I said at the top, desperate and ungrateful. Because frankly, they, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that every single presidential candidate has to be indulged on their own stage. You know, Jim Gilmore was looking around like, where the heck am I? I'm wearing a giant ring. I'm doing the Bill Clinton fist clinch, but heck. And
His ring was so distracting.
It was
It was
like the heart of the ocean on his head.
Yeah.
Well, he got upset. Who got the 2 one-minute questions? And Gilmore was pissed. He used up 2 minutes to bitch about someone getting a 2-minute question.
Wait, let's listen to it while Charles tries to control himself. Let's listen to it. See if you think it's as funny. Go ahead.
There are powerful forces at this point that are really controlling our lives, and that's why people are so angry. But the biggest one is the organized establishment media. And I just noticed just now you gave Carly Fiorina 2 one-minute answers in a row. This media across the country is manipulating and shaping and framing this campaign, and has been for at least a year now, in order to get the kind of choices that people are going to have an opportunity to see. This is wrong. It has to change, and when I'm president, it's going to change.
We have another question for you, Governor Gilmore. Back to back. Here we go. According to Google.
I'll take it.
You got it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, because we know that these things are planned ahead of time, so it's not like she then gave him the next question because he was bitching and complaining. It was actually his turn, as he knew, but that was pretty funny.
But that was the microcosm of what's wrong with America.
Yeah.
Carly got 2 one-minute questions back to back, and that's the illustration of the media's manipulation and destruction of this planet, focused on first and foremost by Fox News. Right there.
He said, and when I'm president, it's going to stop. What does he mean?
I know.
First Amendment, what is he on?
No, because what he's going to do, he's going to sign an executive order to consolidate the media under his authoritarian thumb, and therefore he's going to squash them like an ant unless they do his bidding, and rightfully so.
Or it could be like socialist media, where everybody gets the exact same amount of time, and they'll just keep track somewhere in some magic tower. I don't know.
Also, if
Jim Webb, be happy about that.
If your message is strong enough, if your message is interesting enough, cream rises to the top, man. You can't be complaining that Rick Santorum, you've been doing this forever and ever and ever. Mike Huckabee, I feel like he's been running for president since I was in utero. It's boring. There are new, fresh candidates right now. This is how it works. I'm not saying it's right. I'm the daughter of a failed presidential candidate. I'm not saying it's right, but this is how it works. But the American public decides.
There are bright, shiny objects out there,
They're
as
egos.
President Obama just pointed out. And, I'm sorry, but Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee, they don't have that new car smell.
No, I mean, it's also, it's called earned media for a reason.
Yes.
Because it's earned and because people watch. And it's not like networks put on the candidates they like the best. You put on the ones that viewers are watching. Because, again, it's a business. It's about money. We're after ratings.
Although,
so you give everybody, they start out on the same level, and whoever rises gets more attention.
I don't know. With Gilmore, it feels like someone lost a bet. Or the last person who should be angry about, airtime was Jim Gilmore.
He has hasn't
people
even
don't
campaigned in
know.
Iowa.
Yeah,
He hasn't
exactly.
campaigned at all.
Which was pointed out in the beginning. He
I'm
says,
starting my campaign in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire. And he's upset about a minute here and a minute there and spends a couple minutes to complain about that. It's just nuts.
We had him on Red Eye. We gave him 5 minutes.
Really?
He had a whole block.
Whoa.
How was it?
Incredible.
So actually they owed Carly 3 more minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, how did that rate for you? Did that just go through the roof?
We milked Gilmore for. Well, it was the day he announced, so we really launched it. We were all in for Gilmore.
Did any of your viewers know who he was? Or did you get a lot of emails asking why you were letting some random person come on television and say they were running for president?
No, I had to explain it. But he was very nice, and he was trying to play ball with us, and he made some jokes and everything, so we had a good time.
He was a good. In all seriousness, I do want to say, though, he did make the point about being a vet. Let's listen to that.
Right.
I'm the only veteran, Bill and Martha, in this race. And I'm not going to any Donald Trump event over across town on some sort of faux veteran sort of issue. I'm going to speak to you tonight about the issue that really confronts veterans. I'm going to talk to you about the concerns that they've got with the Veterans Administration, the lousy appeals process that they've got, the fact that sometimes they get good service at the VA and sometimes they don't, and the fact that post-traumatic stress syndrome is not properly recognized, that psychology positions are unavailable in the Veterans Administration. As the only veteran in this race, when I become president of the United States, the veterans are going to be treated with respect and competently and success in the Veterans Administration in this country.
Okay, so he does bring up one very good point that's quite convenient, is that whenever there's an election on, people get very serious about veterans and religion. And then the rest of, like, the next 3 years, the candidates kind of forget about it. They get all fired up about it around election time.
I don't think President Obama ever got serious about veterans or the VA. I'm completely serious because President Bush warned him. He was warned by the previous administration, look, we've got this crisis looming at the VA. It would have been an excellent opportunity for him, especially with the hat trick. You know, he had 2 houses of Congress to really pass for some meaningful reform so you didn't have veterans dying. But he didn't do that. So I don't think he ever took the opportunity to pay anything but, the most infinitesimal lip service to veterans.
But also, do you know what's going to impress me as a sister of veterans and daughter and et cetera? Get policy specific about how you're going to fix the VA, because that scandal is still, I believe, the most embarrassing scandal of the Obama administration, which is really saying a lot. Veterans, I talk to them all the time. I'm related to like 1 million of them. They are jaded with this lip speak, this talking, just this, it's sort of blowhard. Right. I'm going to work for the veterans. I'm interested in the veterans. I'm going to help them. Get policy specific and say how. Just saying I support veterans isn't enough.
Carly says she would fire 400 of them right now.
That was
great. I thought that was really great.
What about, with the veterans, it seems like it's, it's unending scandal and unending, problems in bureaucracy. What about go to the hospital, go find your own specialist and send us the bill?
Well, that's actually a policy proposal. I mean, yes, loosely. Is it happening? No. And that's why they're stuck in systems waiting. And it costs much more money than the average veteran makes to go out and bid out some sort of procedure. But yeah, the fact that they're stuck in this,
or even wait to get reimbursed. But the whole thing, and this is one of your favorite topics, is really an illustration of big government.
Yeah. Right.
That's big government and power. They don't want to give up the power, those budgets, the power. They can't give it up. So it's a succession of bad people who poorly run these places, and a succession of no accountability, zero accountability. And I applaud Gilmore and everyone else up there who talked about veterans.
But the VA is embarrassing. I mean, a lot of people died waiting to get health care. These veterans came back in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, it's so embarrassing. Every American should be horrified about how we treat our veterans right now. And I, for one, am sick of just hearing that everybody loves the veterans. I'm going to throw fundraisers. It's going to be amazing. Tell me exactly how you're going to fix it.
Yeah, they're drowning. They're drowning in goodwill. But the thing about that, though, and to Charles' point, is you have these bloated agencies, whether it's DHS or HHS, and they've got problems. They're looming, and it's almost like they create more problems to get bigger budgets, because the more money they have, the more control they have. And then when things start to fall apart again, all they ask for is another cash Band-Aid. And with these bureaucracies, that never helps. It's never enough. And no one is brave enough, because it's not sexy as a political topic, to take on what it means to trim government and tame bureaucracy.
And then the politicization of vets at this moment, to your point, it to me is so disingenuous, and my father is a Vietnam vet. I was in the Air Force, and of course, you know what your father did. And
you don't have to know or be related to a veteran to care about that.
It's embarrassing.
My grandfather was in World War I.
No, it really is embarrassing.
I think everybody cares. You don't have to be related to someone. Right now, I think it's particularly sensitive because, again, everyone's just throwing this around left and right, and it feels like things are getting worse, not better.
Yeah, it feels disingenuous. All right, with just 4 days to go until the Iowa caucus, what are voters thinking? How do they really feel about the candidates, and what are the most important issues to them? Google News Lab has all the data and more. Shannon Bream joins us now to break this all down. Shannon, what do we know about which candidates Iowa voters are looking at today?
Well, Melissa, this has been so much fun using this Google Trends data because they can track what people are doing. We think about it, if you're sitting at home or at your office and you sometimes don't want to ask a question of your coworker or your friends to seem like you don't know what you're doing, and you Google it, it's so much easier and it's anonymous. So we get a really good snapshot of what people are looking at as we pull together this data. And so what we did is we had them look at what we call the racehorse or race card for Iowa for the undercard as it was happening. And this is over the last hour. You can see. And this doesn't say whether people like or don't like the candidates, it's just the volume of searches about them. And you can see it was all over the place. But at the end of the day, most of the searches and most of the search activity during the debate was Huckabee first, Fiorina, then Santorum, then former Governor Gilmore. And of course, he's fought to get on this stage tonight. So very interesting that he's there. He was a little feisty at times, trying to stand up for himself. But check this out. He had the biggest spike, a 700% spike in people searching sort of about Jim Gilmore. They may have been wondering, who is this guy? Is he running for president? They haven't seen him that much on the debate stages and really, frankly, out campaigning. He got asked about that tonight as well. So this huge spike for him when people are looking for information about him during the debate. But also during the debate, Google has survey questions. So if you go to Google and you type in Fox News debate, you'll be asked a couple of questions. The key question from the undercard debate, who do you think won? We now have the results for you exclusively. Check it out. 62% of people who took this survey on Google, who were watching there, said they thought Carly Fiorina won. And that's a huge margin. It's more than three times the votes of the next person, Governor Huckabee, then Governor Gilmore, and then former Senator Rick Santorum. These just a percentage point apart. So Google is tracking all kinds of cool info. They're going to be doing it for the main debate starting at 9 o'clock Eastern. And it's really interesting, the information you'll see spike. Questions about how old a candidate is, what they think about guns or abortion, but also things like how tall are they? The top question we saw trending most of the day for Ted Cruz, for example, was why was he born in Canada? I mean, it's been settled that he was born there, but people want to know why. What were the circumstances? So they're really digging in to get information about all these different candidates. Google can help us track that. They'll do it for the main debate as well, and we'll have all kinds of interesting information in real time, including that all-important survey question about who wins the next debate. So we'll send it back to you guys, and we'll keep crunching the data down here.
All right, Shannon, thank you so much. So much good information in there.
Shannon is a dream come true.
She is a dream come true. Yes, that's a good line. I'm going to write that down and patent it. Okay.
I stole Unhappy Gilmore from you,
That's right. He was Unhappy Gilmore.
Yes. So that was Melissa Francis's line. FTR,
right.
For the record.
Unhappy Gilmore. All right, so going through her numbers of who won, I don't think it's surprising that the audience that was on Google thought Carly won. Surprising?
No.
I said she was the only one that I thought looked presidential easily. I think she should be a contender for VP. She really has her sound bites in order. I love her. I really do. I don't know why she's not resonating more.
She can't get that momentum, though.
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you exactly why. Go ahead.
3
Please
letters.
do.
RBF. She has to remind herself to smile. She has to constantly, because resting face, she suffers from it. Hashtag RBF.
I know, but if it were a man, nobody would care. I mean, it just makes me sad.
If she were a man, someone would give her, some sort of a laxative.
But it happens more at the debates. The thing is, she won this debate according to the data, right? And I think we all agree she stands out. She stood out in every one of the debates. But debating is her least. It's her worst skill. She's great out on the stump when you see her in front of crowds, and she's got the jeans on, and they got the hay in the background, and it's like Iowa. She's fantastic.
But why doesn't that translate to folks? And that's my question for all these candidates on stage. And I love how they use every excuse in the book except for, maybe it's me. But, if they're all polling in the low single digits, there's something about their campaign or their candidacy or themselves that's just not connecting. And, after that very first debate, when Carly was on the earlier stage, and we all thought, man, she did a great job. She should really be on the main stage. And everyone expected her candidacy to take off. She was not able to create and sustain the momentum necessary to stay in that peloton.
Yeah.
And it's not just the RBF. Sometimes it's the way she answers questions. She goes for fierceness. And, I don't know. Do you think?
Scary. She's a little scary.
A little scary, but is it sexist? I'm glad that you said it, because if I say it, Megan's going to say, Tom, women can be tough too, right?
No, I just think when you're telling a woman she should smile more on a debate stage, I can't help it. No one tells a man they should smile more. That being said, I don't say that. I don't think anyone should smile more. I think what's happening in the world is really scary. But what I will say, to your point, is that everyone has to take culpability for where they're at. You're right. I have no idea why her campaign is stalled. There could be a whole number of reasons, but all these people are going to lose. None of them are going to be president. I hope Carly can maybe be vice president.
I hope one of them wins Iowa, though. How great would that be? If one of these,
it'd be really great if it's Gilmore.
If Jagdish or Muhammad actually won Iowa, that would be fantastic. Well, Santorum made that point at the beginning. He said that if they had done the debates this way last time around, he would have been on the kids' table stage, and here it turns out he won the state. So he was kind of blaming the media for why this, why he isn't getting more attention, that sort of thing. Although, if you looked at then what Shannon was showing us about how everybody came out, he came in last behind Unhappy Gilmore. So I don't know. I mean, he's kind of complaining about it's the media's fault why he's on this stage and he's not on the main stage. But then, the audience isn't really buying it either.
Okay, here's two things. One, Jim Gilmore is going to issue a press release saying, I didn't come in last place in the debate. That's a victory. And number two, I said tonight on my show that Santorum suffers from that Iowa victory 4 years ago. And that haunts him. And it creates a sort of addiction. And, it's like he felt like after he won Iowa, the presidency was within his grasp. And all he's doing is going after that feeling like a drug addict does. Like constantly seeking that first high. And unfortunately,
he's a terribly dated candidate in a lot of different ways. And I'm not just talking about as a conservative. I mean,
sweater vests.
It's just his narrative, the way he's conveying it in a lot. And again, you can't just be living off the fact that I won in 2012. It's like, yeah, homeboy, then what happened? You still lost.
Well, plus, he hasn't been in office. When was the last time he was holding an office?
He went to Staples and got some office supplies.
Yeah, but I mean,
that was pretty awesome.
He's been out for almost a decade.
Although this time around, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Focusing a little bit on Ted Cruz, though, more as we get ready for this next debate that's coming up. One of the things that Shannon brought up was that one of the questions that was most Googled today was, why was Ted Cruz born in Canada? Which is a shift from before, where was Ted Cruz born, I think was the thing that was Googled the most last time. Now people know he was born in Canada. They're trying to figure out why.
Well,
I don't know.
His mom was there. I mean, that's the obvious answer.
I think I'm not a doctor. I'm neither an obstetrician nor a gynecologist. I do not hold a PhD in biology. But I'm pretty certain that his mother went into labor in Canada. And she was able, through the miracle of birth and life forces, to bring that child into the world in another country.
Okay, it's confusing for people. It's confusing.
Well, you see, when a man and a woman love each other very much, they want to get as close to each other as possible.
No, but I just mean it's confusing for me. I'm like, so you're not an American. Technically, you're born in Canada. I mean, even for me, I'm not a constitutional scholar. So if I'm born in Mexico, if I'm born in Norway, I can still run for president. I thought there were laws about this.
And while he's running for president, he's also trying very hard to round up some votes in Iowa. Let's listen to that.
This is all about turnout. Look, what I am asking folks to do is show up and caucus for us on Monday, and to bring others. Bring your mom, bring your son, bring your next door neighbor. It's going to be won on the ground here in Iowa, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, Iowan to Iowan. And our strength is a grassroots army. Now, regardless of what happens here in Iowa, I believe we can win. I hope we win. But regardless, we're right now very strong in New Hampshire. We're very strong in South Carolina. And we are incredibly strong across the Super Tuesday states, the so-called SEC primary.
I think that was the royal we that he was talking about there, right? We are very strong in Iowa, New Hampshire. He's talking about his chances there. We're getting ready for this main stage debate. What are you looking for tonight? What do you expect tonight? Kennedy.
All right, two things.
Yes.
One, I want to see the continuation of the blood feud between Chris Christie and Rand Paul.
Really?
That is the one that's truly for the soul of the Republican Party. There's so much animosity there. The other miserable duo is, of course, Rubio and Cruz.
Yeah.
Rubio was marginalized in the last debate because Trump and Cruz took up so much of the action. Rubio didn't have his big moment until after, like way at the end of the debate when most people had tuned out. So I'm looking for Rubio to strike first and have those big lines early on.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, Ted Cruz is going to be front and center. He really should try to look and sound presidential. You know, take the slings and arrows like a champ. and also articulate his message. Don't get drawn into any dumb feuds or fights, because you have to act like, hey, I'm the de facto winner coming into this because I'm in the center. I'm at the main podium, and I'm going to. While you guys attack me, it won't matter because I'm going to talk to the American public and explain my message to them. Rubio's got to stop drafting. It feels like a NASCAR race with Rubio.
That's absolutely right.
He's just been kind of chilling out, and you wonder, okay, my man, when are you going to make your move? Like,
you got to make your move.
After the checker flag, at some point. And I would like to hear Ben Carson simplify his answers.
Yeah.
Don't try to sound brilliant on everything. It doesn't have to be that simple, Just simplify your answers and see if you can restart this, or maybe start considering being some form of a power broker, because even though he's free-falled, he's plateaued a little bit, and people who like him do like him.
And he's still in double digits in
certain
Iowa.
places,
And by the way, I mean, Hillary Clinton, the one thing she's right about is the polls are notoriously inaccurate in places like Iowa. I don't believe she's not watching them. She watches those polls every single day. She's like a vulture circling over a freshly dead body.
Black tar heroin. She gets her hit every morning.
Amen. She ties off with Bill's belt and
again.
Way too graphic.
Is that why she stayed with Bill?
But the polls don't matter, especially in Iowa, because of this caucus thing that I still don't understand. I mean, I look over, I look at the videos. What is caucusing? How is it different from a primary?
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, but it's so confusing. And of
Go
course,
to a
that's why.
firehouse.
Well,
That's
I mean,
basically
even if,
what it is.
Yes, but even if you can understand it, it shows you that the traditional polls that work in New Hampshire don't work as well in Iowa.
Well, that's what Cruz is talking about, because he's got 9,000 so-called boots on the ground.
So, Megan, what are you looking for
More
tonight?
than in Afghanistan.
Cruz, it is his night. He's in the center. He's the big dog. They're going to attack him. At the same time, this is his strength. I mean, everybody talks about it, but I knew people who debated against him in college and law school. They said he is fierce. He's impossible to beat. He really is the best at this. He's going to be out there in the middle.
He's an incredible debater. Nobody is going to say differently.
A master, some would say.
His problem is connecting with average Americans, I think, in a way that seems authentic. To me, he still comes off so scripted and so robotic. I agree with you. Marco Rubio has to do something tonight that hits everyone everywhere and comes out looking like a leader. I was disappointed with his performance in the last two debates. I also think Kasich, who is polling unbelievably well in New Hampshire, has to come out looking like someone who is formidable in New Hampshire. And I mean, just going off the caucus thing you just said a moment ago, I am one of those people that didn't really care about the Iowa caucus in the way that I care about New Hampshire, because statistically the last few people that have won have gone on to host shows on Fox, and that's it. And I think
love
now,
shows on Fox. What are you talking about?
It's wonderful, but they didn't go on to be in the White House.
Oh,
you know, they didn't go on to be in the White House.
Yeah.
And so now what's interesting is the caucus could actually be a game changer, because if Ted Cruz wins, then he completely stalls Donald Trump's momentum, and that will change the game going into New Hampshire.
Okay, two things here. One, if Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton win Iowa, it's, it becomes very boring. The only person we're not talking about here, who also, Jeb Bush. I mean, he has a chance to not be on the defensive. He has a chance to actually come into this debate not complaining, to define who he is as a candidate and who he will be as a president. He's done a horrible job of that so far, and he could really make a giant momentum shift. And, like John Kasich, to Megan's point, he could be looking forward to New Hampshire.
That's a great point. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio says that he's the one that Democrats fear most. Let's listen to that.
I've been telling people all week, if they nominate me, I'm going to beat Hillary Clinton. We'll win this election. I'll unite the Republican Party, and I will go out and talk to people that haven't voted for us before. We'll create new conservatives. And there's also a reason why the Democrats attack me more than any other Republican, because they know if I'm our nominee, the Republicans win.
Okay, so how does he get over that hurdle? Because everyone makes that argument. And when you're like, who do you think is most likely to beat the Democrats? Everyone says Marco Rubio. Yet it's unclear he's going to win a single state.
Yeah, 2 words, Mitt Romney. That's why. Because he was the one who was electable. He is the one who could beat Barack Obama. That's what he said. And then the Republicans said, you know what? A lot of the people on the right side of the Republican Party said, okay, Mitt, here, you take your shot. You're going to play the middle of the country, and you're going to win the election. And he didn't. And then now the Republicans are saying, I don't want electability. I'm going to vote who I like. That's what.
Yeah, I'm going to vote who I'm passionate about. Someone
Yes.
who,
I wouldn't compare him to Mitt Romney. I mean, he's the son of an immigrant, and
No.
he has an incredibly, I mean, likable,
No, but
relatable.
it's the electability thing. They don't believe it. They don't believe in electability
No,
anymore.
they don't want a moderate. You know, they don't want someone who lacks an ideology or, you know, a clear set of beliefs. And
I
also,
actually think it's his age. I think he's too much like President Obama. I think that's his biggest problem. He's really young. He's really inexperienced. He hasn't been in the Senate that long.
Booties.
The high heels didn't help.
I think the boots are sexy, but they'd be sexier if you wore 6'2".
Yeah.
You know, like Jeb can get away with the super high cowboy boots. It's kind of like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I get it. I love it. I watch it. I know it.
Yeah.
But Marco Rubio, you know, looks like he's doing a little Tom Cruise couch jumping.
Well, you know what was
I also
interesting,
think
though?
he's not as good of a campaigner as I thought he would be. On top of everything else, I thought he would come out and just smoke it. And he's actually not as impressive on the debate stage and on the
It just
stump.
feels like he's holding back.
Have I met him?
Marco Rubio?
I don't believe so.
Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
What is he like in person?
I think he's very much like what you see there.
I've heard that he's not one of the warmer candidates.
Oh.
I've met Chris
Maybe
Christie.
I see everyone in makeup, so I mean, it's about as warm as you can possibly be in the makeup
Chris
room.
Christie, I thought, you know, and here was someone that I have major policy differences with.
He's very
I thought
charming.
he was great. He
Yeah,
was
he's really
warm.
charming.
Great.
He knows how to read people.
Yeah.
He's interested in what you're saying, even when you disagree. I felt the same way about Bobby Jindal.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
here
those
was a
guys
guy.
are good retail politicians who
Yeah.
really do the kissing the baby and shaking hands and going to these tiny counties one after another. So they've mastered that particular art. But, Tom, I wanted to kind of get back to what you said, because those far-right folks who you say compromised with Mitt Romney didn't go out and vote for him either, though.
Yeah.
You know, so to a certain degree, they were also guilty. You know, this is why there's a lot of anxiety about, can you get out the vote this time?
Can I say something as the token, whatever you want to label me, not far right Republican? I hope at this point,
makes you
if
think
it's
you're
not
the
one of my
token?
people, because okay.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I got your back, Melissa. I actually am at the point right now where I maybe hope it's Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, because I still believe this is going to be a national bloodbath, and I want to see everyone put your money where your mouth is. Far right candidates, you're going to get exactly what you want, and you're going to see if this experiment works. And
But
me,
you don't
in
think
my
it will,
heart,
though.
I do not. I don't see. I think people have to leave their bubbles a little bit more. I leave my bubbles all the time. You have to talk to people
So
that
you want to
aren't
see a
doing this.
comeuppance for the far right who've been talking smack about your pop, Mitt Romney, and all these other moderates. You want to see a comeuppance.
It's not just personal because it's my family. It's because it's my politics and the politics of the community I surround myself by. And we are being nothing short of rhino hunted at this point, and I hate that word. But honestly, the far right, you should get exactly what you want this time. Since this is exactly what
so what is that?
saying.
I mean, is that a two-term Bernie Sanders administration where he gets out of office when he's 83? Can you imagine?
No, I think you're
I
talking
thought he's
about
83 now. He's not 83 now?
But you're talking about a Ted
He's
Cruz.
older than Yoda.
When socialism you want. Your point is that Ted Cruz cannot win a national election.
I don't believe he can win a national election, but I want to, at this point, since it's clearly not going to be anyone I support, I want to give whatever I actually don't know your politics, Tom, that well, but I want to give the far right what they want and see how this experiment plays out.
You know, so
Wrapped in a riddle.
That, I think this unity question is really one that has to haunt the RNC. It really does. You know, Bernie and Hillary have gone at it, but I don't know, maybe he's a gentleman. He has not really hit her hard at certain areas.
He's a pansy. He still wants a career when she ends up at. I mean, he's not a gentleman. And I am so sick of this, by the way, that he's this like great gentleman and that he's just this old man.
No one cares about your damn emails, Megan.
I'm like, you're running for president. You should be attacking her for all her vulnerabilities, and you not doing that. I think you're weak.
He definitely showed up at the last Democratic debate. He wiped the floor with
Which
her.
12 people watched.
Yeah, exactly. And I was one of them with my daughters folding laundry on Twitter going, well, he's spanking her like it's an S&M parlor. But he really finally went after Hillary, and he
Does he
swore
like it? No,
on some... Oh, gosh. I sure
Wait,
did.
this is going in a very strange direction. I actually think they're having the same crisis on the left that you're talking about on the right. I mean, it's the same thing. It may not be as ugly, probably because there aren't as many people involved, but they're having the same problem.
They're about to nominate a socialist.
Where they're seeing it's the purists on the extreme edge of the party fighting with the people in the center who are saying, hey, let's be in the middle so that we can get our person in the White
You know
House.
when they messed up, though? Because they anointed Hillary Clinton. So they really, I mean, you can imagine someone in some Democratic headquarters like, golly.
Rubbing oil on her body part.
Why are we going to these places?
No, I'm saying, like, why couldn't they have got a more diverse, more, a much more amazing field?
They don't have it. They don't have that kind of bench. They don't have it.
No, it is a very. I mean, Martin O'Malley is still hanging in the race, and he, like you,
the mayor of Baltimore.
He prays every day, and he ran Baltimore into the ground. But he prays every day for
Baltimore
an
to the
indictment.
ground? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I also think that the Clintons blocked everyone. I mean, last time they were like, let this other guy near the hoop, and it was a huge mistake. So they weren't going to let anyone on the court this time.
Right.
I mean, they were very serious about it, and now they're in the home stretch here, and it looks like she could get yanked from the game.
Yeah. And
I
you
mean,
know
that
what?
would be very
I
interesting.
guarantee you, Bill Clinton and Joe Biden had coffee in a coffee shop, and Bill Clinton slid a dossier across the table, and Joe Biden opened it up, and it was a series of pictures of him sniffing people's clavicles, and he realized, if this
Yeah,
gets...
but I've seen that. I got that.
Is that why he always took the Amtrak to D.C.? Is that why he always took the train?
He goes in the food car and just puts his...
Okay, so while this has gotten very strange and bizarre, let me take it back to a different place here. Everybody's in Iowa, so you notice they did that whole round on religion, very much talking about faith. That'll be another big topic as we move into the next debate. Let's listen to the candidates from this next debate talk about religion a little.
Our nation should hope that our next president is someone who every day and every night and at every moment drops to their knees and asks the Lord for guidance and asks the Holy Spirit for inspiration and asks them for wisdom.
So for me, when people ask, is faith real, I can tell you in my family, I would have been raised by a single mom without my father in the household if it were not for the redemptive love of Jesus Christ. I gave my life to Jesus as well, and it turned my life around.
I, for one, believe that people of faith should act on their faith, and they should be informed by their faith.
Everybody gets very religious on the campaign trail, and I always wonder to myself if they're like that at home. And I'm not casting aspersions on those particular people. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's a little bit like the veteran thing to me. How sincere does it feel?
You know who is like that at home? Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah,
I mean, when you have a portrait of you with our Lord and Savior, that's saying something. I bet if you go into Marco Rubio's home, he does not have comparable artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cruz is probably like that as well. There's certain people who've lived their life a certain way, and you can believe it. But here's the irony is that, the evangelical vote is along the lines of what you were talking about. They've got to get them out, not just to win Iowa, but to win a general election. It's so important, and out of the first 24 states, it's like half of them. That's a big, big place. And Pew just did a research poll that said faith is extremely important. And I think this country does need someone who gives off the feeling that they believe in a higher power.
I agree.
I mean, it's interesting because we are fighting a religious war. So we're fighting against a group of people that are attacking us because of our religion, because it doesn't match with them. At the same time, there's this conversation around how religious are you? It becomes a test, especially on the right.
Yeah.
The left doesn't want to talk about it at all. I mean, they don't in any way, shape, or form.
But when they do, when you have someone from the left criticizing values voters on the right, they always say, well, these people shouldn't vote their religion, but they don't really vote their religion. That just gets them in the door if you're a candidate.
Yeah.
Because if you're an evangelical voter and you're used to voting for evangelical Republicans, if a very convincing person from your church, someone you know is very religious, gets up and they run as a Democrat, because there are evangelical Democrats, then they're not going to get their vote.
Yeah.
Because they don't just vote for evangelicals, they vote for someone that they think shares their values, their political values as well.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't convert you. They don't just go vote only on religion. They vote on, smaller government and other things that they believe in. So I think sometimes it's overstated. It gets you to the rally. You might, there's a lot of people who connect with Huckabee because of his religion, but, they agree with his policies too.
Yeah. I also feel like it's one of those things that there's like a smell test to it. I mean, when you see people out there talking, I feel like you can see who's sincere and who isn't, and who's sort of paying lip service.
Yeah, and I think
right?
it's an easy subject for people to pander.
Right.
And that makes me uncomfortable because, it's like if you want to authentically talk about your faith and how that informs your policies, I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't want to live in a theocracy. I don't want to live under a fundamentalist administration like they do in the Middle East. But I do think, someone who has a faith-based foundation, I'm not offended by that at all. But I also, I respect the way that Ronald Reagan did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you knew he was a man of faith, but he wasn't a preacher. He didn't have to. Like, his actions spoke for himself. There was a silent strength in that.
They're in Iowa right now. I think it will change. Again, I keep saying this. The dirty little secret is at a certain point, very, very soon, it's going to be general election. Ted Cruz's dad is a somewhat controversial pastor, depending on your perspective. A lot of people.
His name is Jeremiah Wright. You're absolutely weird.
America is not even the same country it was 4 years ago. People are a lot more nuanced. Millennials in particular, which I always feel like I have to bring up this generation because soon we're going to be a quarter of the population. They don't they are going to church in less numbers. They are getting married less. They are having babies less. It's an entirely different generation. I think when you put people in boxes and there's some sort of judgment, which I personally have felt from Mike Huckabee at different places.
Really?
Yes, I have. I think when you are supporting the Dukers in the way that you do, but you have different opinions about other things, it's a hard pill for me personally to swallow. I'm not running for office right now. And I think at a certain
Mike
point,
Huckabee also directly attacked women who work at Fox.
He did?
Huckabee, yeah. Remember, Megan called him on it.
Oh, yes, I did forget that.
Yeah, he was talking about how women at Fox have filthy mouths.
Well, I do.
Well, you do. You kidding me? What happens when the cameras aren't running? He's right.
I think he was talking about you, Kennedy. Go ahead.
But I just think at a certain point, you're going to have to start talking about faith with people that faith comes harder to them.
Yeah.
As a general whole in the American public, and you're going to have to be a leader because you're going to be the person America looks to during times of crisis. And I think just being a little more expansive and a little more open-minded, that it doesn't come as easily to some people as it does to a Mike Huckabee, is going to be important in the general election. Right now in Iowa, doesn't matter at all.
One of the candidates made a great point at the beginning when I think it was Martha asked them about the divide in the Republican Party, sort of the war against each other, and they made the point, and I can't even remember which one it was, but he said that, the topics that we hit on in the debates that are so, sort of up here are not even close to what actual real people in each state are talking about. And when you go from state to state, they have their issues that they're very focused on. And the conversations are so different than what you see on television. And it really reminds you that, like they say, all real estate is local, all politics is local as well. That the issues on the ground in these states where they're deciding are much different than the stuff that we're talking about,
Drugs.
right?
New Hampshire?
Right.
The candidates were shocked. They went to the town halls in New Hampshire, and everyone's talking about heroin.
Yeah.
They were blindsided by it. I didn't even realize. I just saw a special the other day on TV about the drug problem in Massachusetts, my home state.
Yeah.
Cape Cod there's heroin everywhere. There's crystal meth. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so they got to be prepared for these things when they go up there.
A kid died in my backyard 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And he came. His father's a doctor. His mother. They come from a very well-to-do family. That morning he was supposed to be admitted into a drug rehab program. And I don't know, he just stumbled into our yard. We had a gate that wasn't locked. We didn't know it. And, we were watching a movie. He banged on the window. And, we called the cops, and he died in our backyard under a bush. 19-year-old white kid from a very well-to-do family. And it is a problem. And I think part of it, you can encompass economic policy, spiritual policy, and all those things. So even though it's like real estate being local, I do believe there's a broad message that that will resonate with everyone. And I think we all do feel, whether it's religion or not, that our compass is tilted a little bit or something is wrong with this country.
When Chris Christie brought up being pro-life in relationship to drug addiction in New Hampshire and being pro-life throughout an entire person's life, that's really something for the first time in a long time that resonated with me that he said, and I think you're making a great point about that, Charles.
Well, I also think, when you talk about local politics, there's nothing more local than being able to provide for your children.
Right.
And, there's nothing more important to people than their own personal economy. Mm-hmm. And I think there are ways of discussing that sometimes the candidates think they hit on, but they really get away from. Yes, we have to talk about national security. And, yes, we have to talk about keeping people safe. But that's why things like Common Core really hit home. Because when the federal government is imposing a one-size-fits-all set of standards, there's nothing that distances you more from the relationship you have with your child than the federal government saying, we are stepping in, we are the shield between you and your kid. Yeah. We are now in charge of their education. Those are the kind of things that hit home.
Well, I only brought this point up in the first place because as we go back to the debate on the main stage tonight, it's important to remember that while this is a national audience and we're all watching this, they are talking to Iowans. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are in Iowa. We are just a few days away from that actual vote. And as they hit on their points here, if their message sounds different than it does down the road and the candidates seem to be changing, this is a very specific vote that we have coming up. Right, Megan?
Oh, yeah, completely. They're speaking, like I said, that's the thing I just said about faith. They're speaking right into the heartland, 97 hours until the Iowa caucus. Right now, it's Ted Cruz's to lose against
He's got to stop debating.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, yeah, he's a great debater, but that isn't. I don't think it's helped him with people, his debates.
Well, he's doing really well in Iowa. It's
but
helping
after
him.
the debates, you don't hear people talking about, oh, Ted Cruz spoke to me. I mean, they might say he won on points, but I don't think people care about debating points. He starts every answer. They ask a question, he says, when I grew up, and
That's what my husband says too. His voice is so irritating.
And it seems like he's launching into debate points.
Yeah.
And I don't feel
that's
the
what Carly
connection
Fiorina
from Ted
does
Cruz.
too.
Yes.
I feel that they both suffer from the same thing. I think he just has a better organization and more money and a way of reaching out and getting money. And he's also been working certain constituencies for a lot longer. Like he has chosen his people and the groups that he wants to reach, like evangelicals and Tea Party Republicans, and he has gone after them full bore for a long time. I don't think she's done that. But I agree, there's something off-putting about him.
I want someone to ask him straight up, you're wildly unpopular and in Congress with all your colleagues. And I know everybody hates Congress and everything right now, and you're wildly unpopular in a lot of places. How are you going to work with your fellow congressmen and women if elected president?
I would be willing to bet money that's one of the questions tonight.
Although I
got
got to tell you though, I like him for that.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Because
he wears it as a badge.
A lot of people are talking about when they get in and what they'll do. How many people have actually gone to D.C. and tried to shake it up the way that Ted Cruz has? He has put his mouth where his money is, and he's tried to shake the joint up.
And by the way, how many people go into Iowa and say, I am against ethanol subsidies?
Right.
That's the one
ballsy.
thing I have a ton of respect for.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, and that is one of the things that he's done to really gin up a lot of support for himself. That's legit.
And the governor told people don't vote for him. That's a heck of a gambit. Heck of a gambit.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It's a badge that he's worn, and he said that Marco Rubio has essentially done the opposite and flip-flopped. So it'll be, all these questions no doubt will come up. That is it for now. We are going to be back here at 11 p.m. Eastern Time for another FoxNews.com digital debate special following the Republican debate that's coming up now.